Racial healing. Definition. Racial healing recognizes the need to acknowledge and tell the truth about past wrongs created by individual and systemic racism and address the present consequences. It is a process and tool that can facilitate trust and build authentic relationships that bridge divides created by real and perceived differences. We believe it is essential to pursue racial healing prior to doing change-making work in a community. Because, before you can transform systems and structures, you must do the people work first. W. K. Kellogg Foundation, N. D. B. page 5.
Examples. Access to quality health care is as easily available and accessible in the urban core as it is in the suburbs. B. Health indicators for POC such as childbirth survivability, diabetes, heart health, and length of life are similar to those of white people. C. Homeownership rates among POC and white people are similar. D. Regardless of geographical location, housing occupancy is diverse between POC and white neighborhoods and the city at large. E. Business employees are racially diverse regardless of work locations. And F. Regardless of religious faith, the members of religious congregations are racially diverse. Compare with racial humility and racial reconciliation.
Racial humility, synonymous with cultural humility. Definitions. Learning across the lines of racial difference, Gallardo, 2013. And B. A look back at prior racial injustices in order to move forward, Perkins, 2018.
Examples. Engaging in conversations with people of different ethnic groups concerning issues of race. B. A personal or a professional development activity being conducted by learning center staff, tutors, faculty members, or student study group leaders who read, study, and reflect about books on race, and consider changes in personal actions, attitudes, and words. C. Visiting civil rights sites and learning about the historical events that occurred there, and, if possible, visiting the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture and continuing with a deeper study of the events and conversations with POC. D. Attending an ethno-religious service or social club whose members are of a different ethnic group than their own for a significant period of time, talking with the regular attendees, and becoming a learner by listening and observing. Perkins, 2018. E. Attending a branch meeting of the NAACP, or the National Urban League in your city, or on a college campus. And F. Attending campus events hosted by different racial groups, and reflecting about what was seen and heard. Compare with racial healing and racial reconciliation.
Racial inequity. Definition. When two or more racial groups are not standing on approximately equal footing. Kendi, 2019, page 18.
Examples. Differences among racial groups regarding A. Access to equal standards of education. B. Access to equal standards of health care, home ownership, job opportunity, retirement savings, salary and benefits, and social capital. And C. Home ownership. Over 73% of white families live in owner-occupied homes, 47% of Latinx families in owner-occupied homes, and 42% of black families in owner-occupied homes. USA Facts, 2020. D. Campus security officers more often stopping black people than white people to check why they are on campus. E. Campus buildings of taxpayer-funded institutions that are locked and only admissible with the presentation of an institution-issued identity card, which creates an unfriendly atmosphere for staff and students, especially for those that are first-generation college, and find the college experience unfamiliar and sometimes intimidating. F. Real estate agents steering prospective homeowners to neighborhoods of similar demographics, ethnicity, and race, despite having credit ratings that allow them to purchase more expensive homes in predominantly white neighborhoods. Tatum, 2017. And G. Equity programs such as TRIO being assigned by senior college administrators to old offices and classroom spaces, abandoned by academic departments with hand-me-down furniture, old equipment, and dilapidated facility conditions. This treatment creates an impression of the low priority for the program by the campus administrators, and diminished importance for the students who are often from diverse and marginalized backgrounds.
And G. Equity programs such as TRIO being assigned by senior college administrators to old offices and classroom spaces abandoned by academic departments with hand-me-down furniture, old equipment, and dilapidated facility conditions. This treatment creates an impression of the low priority for the program by the campus administrators and diminished importance for the students who are often from diverse and marginalized backgrounds.
Compare with bias, bigotry, discrimination, and implicit bias, racial equity.
Racial policy, synonymous with institutional racism, structural racism, and systemic racism. Definition. By policy, I mean written and unwritten laws, rules, procedures, processes, regulations, and guidelines that govern people. There is no such thing as a non-racist or race-neutral policy. Every policy in every institution in every community in every nation is producing or sustaining either racial inequity or equity between racial groups. Kendi, 2019, page 18.
Examples. Offering tutoring sessions and study groups during hours, when a higher percentage of students of color are working in comparison to white students. B. Consistently selecting student professionals who are recommended by classroom instructors for positions of tutors, study group leaders, and other student paraprofessionals without leaving final decision to the program administrator who can balance applicant experiences with creating a racially diverse staff. C. Use of standardized tests to measure aptitude and intelligence is one of the most effective racist policies ever devised to degrade black minds and legally exclude black bodies. We degrade black minds every time we speak of an academic achievement gap based on these numbers. It creates a racial hierarchy with whites and Asians at the top and Latinx and blacks at the bottom. Kendi, 2019, pages 101-102. The real issue is an opportunity gap, rather than an achievement gap, with inequitable funding between predominantly black and white schools for curriculum, teacher-student ratios, and per-pupil expenditures. Kendi, 2019. Compare with racism, structural racism, and systemic racism.
Racial reconciliation. Definitions. Involves three ideas. First, it recognizes that racism in America is both systemic and institutionalized, with effects on both political engagement and economic opportunities for minorities. Second, reconciliation is engendered by empowering local communities. Lastly, justice is the essential component of the conciliatory process, justice that is best termed as restorative rather than retributive, while still maintaining its vital punitive character. William Winter Institute for Racial Reconciliation, 2007, para. 2. B. The first step in reconciliation is seeing the problem, not just the solution. We've not been able to arrive at the solution because we haven't acknowledged the problem. Perkins, 2018, p. 16, and c. Biblical reconciliation is the removal of tension between parties and the restoration of loving relationships. Perkins, 2018. Page 17.
Examples. In 2018, the City of Charleston City Council formally recognized and apologized for its role in the slave trade. The city also pledged to create an office for racial reconciliation to help with healing. Gomez, 2018, and b. The city government of Evanston, Illinois, created a city reparations fund for local African Americans by using sales tax income on recreational marijuana. Lutz, 2020. Compare with racial healing and racial humility.
Racism. Definitions. Marriage of racist policies and racist ideas that produces and normalizes racial inequities. Kendi, 2019. Page 18, and b. Specific ways in which institutional policies and practices create different outcomes for different racial groups. The policies may never mention specific racial groups, but their effect is to create advantages for whites, sick, and oppression and disadvantage for people from groups classified as non-white. W. K. Kellogg Foundation, N. D. A. Page 164.
Examples. See examples for ethnic racism, institutional racism, passive racism, space racism, and structural racism. Compare with ethnic racism, institutional racism, passive racism, space racism, and structural racism.
Racist, adjective. Definitions. One who is supporting a racist policy through their actions or inaction or expressing a racist idea. Kendi, 2019, page 9, and b. But there is no neutrality in the racism struggle. The opposite of racist is anti-racist. Kendi, 2019, page 10.
Examples. See behavioral racist and cultural racist. Compare with behavioral racist and cultural racist.
Racist idea. Definitions. A. Any idea that suggests one racial group is inferior or superior to another racial group in any way. Racist ideas argue that the inferiorities and superiorities of racial groups explain racial inequities in society. Kendi, 2019, page 20. The source of racist ideas was not ignorance and hate, but self-interest. Kendi, 2019, page 230. And b. Make people of color think less of themselves, which make them more vulnerable to racist ideas and makes white people think more of themselves, which further attracts them to racist ideas. Kendi, 2019, page 6.
Examples. The idea that there is a hierarchy of opportunity, of which the privileged white male sits at the top and the black female sits at the bottom. B. The false belief that most welfare recipients are black people, when actually the majority are white people. The majority of black people refuse to accept welfare assistance. Kendi, 2019. C. False assumption that black neighborhoods have a higher rate of crime than white neighborhoods. Kendi, 2019. D. Terrorists are most have roots from the Middle East countries. And E. Most black women are angry and loud. Compare with racism.
Space anti-racism. Definition. Powerful collection of anti-racist policies that lead to racial equity between integrated and protected racialized spaces, which are substantiated by anti-racist ideas about racialized spaces. Kendi, 2019, page 166.
Examples. Classrooms for developmental level courses and offices of those who teach them are of same quality as those for undergraduate education classes. B. Learning centers, tutoring centers, and educational equity grant programs such as TRIO are easily and quickly accessed by students through nearby parking lots and campus shuttles. C. Office, meeting, and classroom spaces used by educational equity grant programs such as TRIO are similar of undergraduate education programs. D. Public bus routes to the campus offer frequent bus connections. And E. Institutionally sponsored bus routes are provided to ensure easy access for students who live in lower economic neighborhoods for easy pickup and connection to the public bus or transit system. Compare with anti-racism, verb, anti-racist, noun, ethnic anti-racism, and social justice.
Space racism. Definition. Powerful collection of racist policies that lead to resource inequity between racialized spaces or the elimination of certain racialized spaces, which are substantiated by racist ideas about racialized spaces. Kendi, 2019, page 166.
Examples. Locating ethnic cultural centers in the basements of old buildings which takes them away from the natural flow of students through the college campus. B. Locating learning centers which serve a culturally diverse group of students in buildings without nearby parking lots or not close to campus bus routes, making it inconvenient for students to access, especially during unsafe weather conditions. C. Locating academic support services which serve a diverse population of students, especially those from marginalized backgrounds in the oldest and most dilapidated campus buildings. D. Campus security officers more often stopping black people than white people to check why they are on campus. E. Campus buildings of taxpayer-funded institutions that are locked and only admissible with the presentation of an institution-issued identity card, which creates an unfriendly atmosphere for staff and students, especially for those that are first-generation college, and find the college experience unfamiliar and sometimes intimidating. F. Real estate agents steering prospective homeowners to neighborhoods of similar demographics, ethnicity and race, despite having credit ratings that allow them to purchase more expensive homes in predominantly white neighborhoods. Tatum, 2017. And G. Equity programs such as TRIO being assigned by senior college administrators to old offices and classroom spaces abandoned by academic departments with hand-me-down furniture, old equipment, and dilapidated facility conditions. This treatment creates an impression of the low priority for the program by the campus administrators and diminished importance for the students who are often from diverse and marginalized backgrounds. Compare with ethnic racism, institutional racism, passive racism, racism, and structural racism.
Structural racism. Definition. Structural racism is within systems and organizations. The racism is embedded into and throughout the everyday policies, rules, and regulations that are not neutral, but rather afford advantages to one or more races over others.
Examples. It is not unusual within an urban high school for textbooks to be used and out of date, while suburban students have newer books and learning resources due to their higher per capita funding for the students, and b. immigration policies favor Northern Europe and exclude or seriously reduce applicants from Africa and the Middle East. Kendi, 2019. When Congress ended the national origins quotas in the 1960s, lawmakers implemented a policy of seemingly equal country caps in order to limit legal immigration from Mexico and countries in Asia. Cook, Martin and Fitzgerald, 2014, paragraph 5. Compare with ethnic racism, institutional racism, passive racism, and space racism.
Social justice. Definitions. The condition in which all people have equal access to education, employment, wealth, healthcare, well-being, justice, freedom, and opportunity. B. A vision of society in which the distribution of resources is equitable and all members are physically and psychologically safe and secure. Adams et al. 2007. And c. Individuals are both self-determining, able to develop their full capacity and interdependent, capable of interacting democratically with others. Social justice involves social actors who have a sense of their own agency as well as a sense of social responsibility toward and with others, their society, and the broader world in which we live. These conditions we wish not only for own society but also for every society in our interdependent global community. The process of attaining the goal of social justice should also be democratic and participatory, inclusive of human agency and human capability for working collaboratively to create change. The goal of social justice education is to enable people to develop the critical analytical tools necessary to understand oppression and their socialization within oppressive systems and to develop a sense of agency and capacity to interrupt and change oppressive patterns and behaviors in themselves and in the institution and communities they are a part. Bell, 2007, pages 1 and 2.
Examples. All people have equal access, equality, to education, employment, wealth, healthcare, well-being, justice, freedom, and opportunity. All people receive equitable outcomes from their education and employment regarding wealth, health, well-being, justice, freedom, and opportunity. And c. Access to distribution of resources, namely the COVID vaccine, is equally distributed to ethnic minorities and the poor. Compare with anti-racism, anti-racist discrimination, equality, equity, and inclusion.
Stereotype threat. Definition. Risk of a person confirming unwarranted negative academic capability stereotypes based on an individual's racial, ethnic, gender, or cultural group. This creates fear about academic failure, which results in difficulty focusing on academic tasks and lowering academic performance rather than predictions based on the person's academic preparation. Steele and Aronson, 1998.
Examples. An academic advisor says that some students from Asian and white student groups will be naturally more successful in STEM academic majors than other racial groups, and therefore they should consider other academic majors. And b. A test administrator says to a group of ethnically diverse students that a high-stakes assessment will likely be a critical gatekeeper of whether a student is admitted to a highly selective STEM program. Compare with culture and imposter syndrome.
Tone policing. Definition. When someone, the privileged person, in a conversation or situation about oppression shifts the focus of the conversation from the oppression being discussed to the way it has been discussed. Tone policing prioritizes the comfort of the privileged person in the situation over the oppression of the disadvantaged person. Oluo, 2019, pp. 205-206.
Examples. White teacher or tutor telling POC to lower the volume of their conversation. B. One person stating the other is acting too emotional while talking. C. During a conversation about history of racism on Black and Indigenous populations, Jeremy, a white student, admonishes William, a Black student, for his emphatic manner of speaking in which he raises his voice when speaking about the topic, rather than the topic itself. D. Belief an angry Black woman should refrain from conversations that make her appear angry in a meeting. And E. White resident assistants repeatedly telling trio students they are too loud in the residence hall during the summer program, while not doing same for white summer school residents in the same facility. Compare with privilege and racism.
Author note. We owe much to the expertise of the authors, editors, and external review teams that created other race glossaries. We cited their work frequently in our glossary. Secondly, we acknowledge the Colleagues of Color for Social Justice, CCSJ. The co-authors of this glossary are members of that group. The CCSJ was created in fall 2020 to provide a forum for people of color in higher education to produce publications and media projects that intersect with race and social justice. This group will grow organically as we conduct our work. From a brief invitation in fall 2020 through a single email listserv, the group has grown to more than 50 participants. They serve in a variety of roles in academic affairs, enrollment management, and student affairs at various levels of their institutions. After starting with an initial set of writing and media projects, any member of CCSJ can propose new writing and media projects for others in the group to join. Periodically, the group will revisit the group name, purpose, composition, and projects. More information about CCSJ members and their publications and media are available at www.socialjustice.org. Currently, members are at various stages with a dozen publications and are contributing to our blog and Twitter channel. In the future, they will add a YouTube channel and Facebook page.